All right, what do we think, you guys?
Yeah, let's go ahead and
Is
get
this
started.
us?
I
All
think
right,
this is us.
this is us. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to this afternoon of continued modeling of inquiry for youngest students. Your host today will be Willow Regnery from the Belina Stinson School, who I'm sure you've met already, and Sagit Betzer from the Bay Area Discovery Museum, who I'm sure you've also met already. My name is Berit Adden. I'm the Education Director with the Point Reyes National Seashore Association. We're the nonprofit partner to the National Park, and we do education and conservation activities on site for students and the public. So, I hear you had some homework last night. Is it true that you had some mind mapping work that you had to do?
That was the day before.
Okay, the day before.
Everybody
Okay.
was to sit in their own watershed and reflect on their place in their watershed. So it wasn't yesterday, the day before.
I can't tell one day from the next these days anyway.
That's okay.
So it's just a blur. But I would like to start with just hearing some of your reflections about thinking about your mind mapping activity of thinking about your watershed, and what are some of the things that you discovered about you and your place in the watershed by doing that activity. So you can just go ahead and raise your hand if you'd like to share, and I'll be able to call on you. Tracy.
Well, one thing I noticed was like the longer I sat there, the more I noticed. Like you notice everything really quick first, and then after a while, and I brought my two kids there, and they started to point out things too that I hadn't noticed.
Yeah, so it takes time. And that's one of the things with inquiry-based learning and with science learning is it does take time to take things in. Great. What else? Yeah, Flora.
So I just moved to San Rafael. So what I did was I pulled up the map on my phone and I kind of just pinpointed where I live now and kind of compared it to where I just moved from in Richmond because I was right on the water. So that was really interesting to kind of compare how close I am to the water now to how close I was.
Yeah, that's really cool. Looking for differences and similarities. Nice. What else? Willow.
I live on the San Geronimo Creek, and I looked up what the watershed name is. It's the Lagunitas San Geronimo Creek watershed. And I focused on my senses. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? Taste was a little hard. Touch was kind of meh, but it was, yeah, just taking the time to really think about it from a scientific observational place.
I appreciate how you were accessing all your different senses to take in information about that environment and kind of interpret your surroundings in that way. Would anybody like to take a stab at, in your own words, defining what you think a watershed is? If you were going to say a watershed is, in your own words, how might you describe that? It might be easy to start out with something like a watershed is a place.
I guess I was thinking that a watershed would be a place, like I'm just looking at even the words, shedding the water, sharing the water. Maybe shedding is moving, so a place where the water begins or is an origin and then drifts to other places.
Nice. So I like how you've got the water collecting and then shedding. So if you think about a shed is something where you collect things like garden tools in a garden shed. A watershed collects water, but it also sheds water as the water moves through it on its way to the ocean. And so a watershed, you can think of it as an area of land where water collects together and flows to a common place on its way. You can think of it from the mountains to the ocean. So a watershed is that drainage basin. It's that whole area of land where the water collects and flows through to a common body of water as it passes through the watershed. Everything in that watershed is part of the watershed. So when we're thinking about watersheds as the basis for inquiry for the youngest students, it's really an abstract concept. If you think about the water flowing from mountains to the ocean and everything that happens in between, the scale is a bit large and a bit hard to grasp for the youngest students. So we're not going to focus entirely on watersheds today. We thought we should practice inquiry more on more tangible subjects for them that's going to be more relatable and work a little bit better. If you want with the youngest students to start thinking toward the concept of a watershed, thinking about your neighborhood might be a good place to begin. So how does water move through your neighborhood? What are the things that are living and growing in your neighborhood, and how are those interacting? And that might be a more manageable scale as then you move up toward thinking about water flowing from mountains down through, flat parts and out to the ocean. And so, but if you do have questions about watersheds and watershed dynamics and how they work, we will have some Q&A at the end that you can specifically ask about watersheds. One little trick I will show you though, just to give you just one basis for understanding, is make a fist like this in front of yourself. And if this were a landform, what would your knuckles be? What are those knuckles? Those are the mountains, right? And so if it were raining, where would the water collect? See how the water would flow through between your fingers and the knuckles? So those would be the rivers flowing down the mountain. And if it rains, if it falls down this side, it's in one watershed. If it falls down that other side of the mountain, it's in another watershed. So the mountains are the walls of that watershed. The mountain defines one watershed from another. So that's just a little handy way of thinking about a watershed. But today, instead of focusing on watersheds, we're going to focus on otters, because they're adorable and mighty and powerful, and they have fun, and they have so many wonderful adaptations. And so specifically, we'll be looking at how does an otter use its body? And another way to think of that is, what are its adaptations? Where does an otter live and what does it need to live? Or what is its habitat? And then how do those relate to a concept of the watershed? So we do have some slides.
Yeah, do you want me to share the slides now?
Yeah.
Okay. Can everybody see? Great.
Right, so we'll be dividing our presentation up into 3 different sections. How does a river otter use its body? What makes a good home for a river otter? And how does this all relate to a watershed? All right, go ahead. So first we're going to watch an otter video. So we get to see an otter in action. And I want you to really, when you're watching this, what do you notice about the otter? What do you notice about its body? And then what are you wondering about it as you're watching this video? So if you want to go ahead and play that video, I will mute my Awesome. Let's see, is there, oh, I noticed that we're a small enough group that if you just slide over that otter picture, we can see each other still. But I'd like to have a little discussion now about what are some of the things you noticed. So go ahead and if you have something to share, Danielle, what's something you noticed about the otter?
Who wasn't scared of the person. Like, I feel like you shouldn't be able to get that close to wild animals. I mean, naturally, that's kind of concerning.
Yeah, so it's hard to know what the situation with is with this otter. What did you notice about the ground it was on?
Is it a sidewalk?
Yeah, it looked like it was on some kind of sidewalk. So otters are gregarious. They do like to live in quiet places away from people, but we don't really know where this video came from. This video could have even been from, you know, a rehabilitation place or maybe even a zoo. I'm not really sure. So, but yeah, that's a good observation. This otter didn't seem scared at all. What else? Tracy.
I noticed that it seemed like it was walking around trying to dry off, and it was kind of rubbing, like rolling around and shaking off all the water.
Yeah, so maybe it was a little itchy, maybe it's trying to get dry. What else did you notice about this otter? Go ahead, Miss Gina.
Very active. Didn't stop moving. Just a couple times he'd put his front paws out and have a little 2-second rest, and then he kept going and rolling and moving about.
So much energy. And that's a characteristic of otters, is that they're very, very high energy. They're always moving around and doing something together. And it takes a lot of food actually to fuel all that energy they have, just like little kids. Very similar that way. What else? Hello.
Yeah, I noticed that I could see when it was rolling around kind of the fatty body, like the fatty part of it kind of wiggled when it moved around. You could really see the kind of how it was carrying the fat on its body to protect it for warmth. And the big fat tail.
Yeah. What do you know about the water around in this area? How does it feel?
It's cold.
It's pretty cold. So how would that help it?
It provides insulation.
Yeah, so it's got probably a nice insulating warm layer there. So it's got that kind of little fat layer. It's also got all that thick hair on it, right? So otters have a couple layers of fur. They have that outer coat, and then they have a very, very dense inner coat as well. That's very, very warm and insulating for them. So that's something that would help them live in that cold water. What else? Oh, you said something about the tail. What about that tail?
It had a big fat thick tail that was she had good control over the tail and could move just the tip of it. So
yeah, you can see her whole body was moving when she was moving that tail.
Right.
Can somebody share what they think some different uses that tail might be? How would an otter use that tail?
Water.
Yeah, moving through the water, and you saw its body was really skinny. Oh yeah, I like that motion you made. That's a good motion for an otter, and that's how they swim. I would like you. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, as a kid, they turn like pretty fast. Like when the tail helped them turn faster than if it wasn't as strong.
Super fast, yeah. So their tails are, you saw it's like one big muscle. So it uses that tail to power its way through the water. It uses that kind of undulating motion. It can turn super fast. And also they can use their tails for protection. It's such a big, strong muscle that they can protect themselves with that if they need to also. But I like how you made that undulating motion. To remember their strong tails, I want you guys all to wiggle your own otter tails right now. Give a wiggle to your otter tail. Remember that they use that to get around in the water. And they have that nice warm fur. What else do you see? What else did you see on the otter's body that you think might be?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I was wondering because you said she. How do you know if it's a she or a he?
I don't. It just came out that way. No, I'm not skilled enough to be able to identify male or female otter just by looking at that. Carrie.
I was noticing the adorable face with the little squishy nose and the cute little eyes, and the difference in the coloring from the top of the head to under the chin with the whiskers and sort of that little bearded scruff.
Yes, they're so cute. They have a lot of those endearing qualities. And a lot of those qualities are really important features to help them survive too. What do you think those whiskers, go ahead and make whiskers for me now. Make those otter whiskers. What do you think those whiskers do for the otter?
Pick up vibrations.
Yeah,
Maybe
vibrations. Why would it help them to pick up vibrations with their whiskers?
like if predators are in the area, like in the water, it makes me think of like echolocation type of thing. Well, in the water, maybe picking up vibrations of predator or food nearby. Or I don't know how well they can see under the water, but maybe it helps them feel around so they don't go bumping into stuff.
Willow pointed out that our water is cold. What's something else you've noticed about our water around here?
Dark and murky.
It's kind of murky. Yeah, so even if the water is really cloudy and dark, they can use those whiskers to feel vibrations in the water, and that's one of the ways they catch their prey, is with those whiskers. What's another feature on its face? Did you see anything about its mouth? Could you see anything in its mouth?
The mouth is kind of under the chin, like, you know, the nose is here, but their mouth is actually kind of below a little bit.
Yeah, it's down low there. And if it had opened its mouth, you'd see that it has some pretty substantial teeth. So otters have a pretty good big set of teeth. They've got a lot of molars for chewing up and grinding up their food. Not the kind of molars that a deer or a horse would have for grinding vegetation, but they're kind of pointy molars, kind of like ours, but they have a lot of those, and very sharp teeth up in front, so they can catch that food and chew that up. So that's some important features about them. Yes, Willow.
I also noticed their feet had webbing between their toes and also claws. Very sharp little claws.
So how do those two features, how do those features of their little special paws, how do those help them survive in the water?
Well, we saw that the otter was out walking around very easily on land, and also, as we know, is a very skilled swimmer. So the webbed feet, you know, are very, like I think about a duck who has very webbed feet, who kind of looks awkward when they're on land. They can still walk, but it's not quite as elegant as the otter. So the otter kind of has a hybrid, like the mini webbing. And then the claws, I'm assuming, are for killing whatever kind of prey they're going after, or for defending themselves, maybe for digging.
Those are great observations. Yeah, just like a duck's feet. And I like using that analogy. So when you're talking with kids about different body parts, looking for those similarities in other organisms that have those same form and function will help them make those connections to understanding the different use. And I like this comment from Carrie that it's almost like a raccoon, like with the little, how they're little hands almost. Is that kind of what you mean, Carrie? They look like those little hands. So yeah, so the otters, they have a dual purpose paw. They've got that webbing so that they can it helps propel them and helps them steer in the water for sure. And then those little claws help grip when they're walking on the ground. So they can actually run 15 miles an hour on land. So they can be, almost as fast on land as they are in water. And those special adaptations of their paws help them do both those things. Willow also mentioned digging. Does anybody have an idea where otters make their home? Like what kind of home or den might an otter live in? Any guesses with those little claws, how they might use those?
Mud tunnels.
Yeah, they make little tunnels. So they make little tunnels or dens in the riverbank. Sometimes if they find an empty beaver dam or something, they might use that, or an empty log, but they do tunnel as well. So those little claws help them with that. All right, what else? Is there anything else you'd like to point out about their body or their behavior that you noticed? Anything we missed?
To me, it looked like he was searching for something. Kind of just
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, like it was really curious. Like, yeah, I kind of wonder what the bigger picture is there and what the otter was doing. What are some things that what are some things that you're wondering about otters now that you've seen this one moving around a little bit?
Mm.
I wonder, are they known to be alone? I thought they were like kind of buddy system kind of fellas. So
Does it-
that was just something I
Yeah, so
wondered
you're
about.
wondering if, that's a good question.
I also see that that this video is taken from Walnut. The thing is a nice view of North American river otter in Walnut Creek and the River Otter Society. So I was like wondering, it's probably someone spotted it in wild.
So this was a local otter.
Yeah.
So Walnut Creek isn't far away from here. So that's kind of exciting. So if you're looking at a video and you know that it's from an otter nearby, like that's something exciting for kids. And this otter was on a sidewalk. So that means that maybe you can even see an otter if you're in your own neighborhood or an urban setting. That's cool. What's something else that you're wondering after watching this otter?
I'm wondering what it's looking for. Like Danielle.
Yeah, what was it doing?
Yeah, there was something, well, I noticed that there was something on the ground that it kept going toward. And I wonder if it was like just, I don't know, like some, I don't know, scent or like maybe scat or what, I don't know. I wonder what it was that he was.
Yeah, what it was looking at there. Has anybody heard anything about otter scents or otter scat that they would like to share with the group? Is there anything that you know already that you'd like to bring? So otters are part of a group of mammals called mustelids that do leave scent markers. And so scent is very important to otters. So you mentioned that cute nose. That's something that's very important to them too. They're very clued into using their sense of smell. And it might have been marking some territory. It might have been smelling where another otter had been. So that would be interesting to know and to see a little bit more of what was going on there. And then Danielle, I think you mentioned that they're kind of social. Otters are very social and they're usually in family groups. When they pup, when they have their babies, the males go away when the babies are little, but then everybody comes back and helps teach the little ones to swim. And they do play a lot. There's been a lot of observation of otters. They're famous for making slides, sliding into the water, and actually having a lot of fun. It looks like a fun life being an otter, I have to say. So thinking about how fun it would be to be an otter, Sagit has some suggestions for you, and then you will get to be an otter.
So if we go, yeah. So we're wondering if you could get one feature of an otter, what would it be and why? And it can be behavior, it can be a part of a body, and also to think of how, even if you just want to try it for one day, how would you do it? Or for 5 minutes, yeah. We are a small group, so we can just share. You don't have to write it in the chat. I can start just to get us, I really want to test what it means to have whiskers and get vibration before my kids come. And also just to feel them, and I thought maybe I should take some kind of like a pipes, like clean pipe or something, and just make it and just go like this for some time and feel.
Sagit, do you want me to share the words that are on this page or do you want to wait?
We can share, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Get out of.
I would like to try its tail because, I love swimming as it is, but I want to swim faster. Like, I feel like I just want to be able to like twist and turn at will, do all those maybe flips, but yeah, just its tail is really cool.
I'm with Ruben. I want to be able to swim fast and twisty like that.
Yeah.
I was thinking similarly, but I was thinking about their back and how it's long and flexible. So I don't know if mine feels stiff but I like the idea of how they could really move their back, and he or she looks comfortable moving around. So I was wishing for that.
I mean, I like the idea of floating on my back and having snacks eating off my belly. I mean, that sounds pretty delightful for a day.
You know, can I take back my tail thing now? I want to do that. That sounds really great.
Well, if you guys want to lie down right now and eat off your bellies, we won't tell anyone.
Yeah, I think having a tail to swim fast would be really cool.
Nice, Carrie. I see you down there. Okay, are you guys ready to be otters now? Thought about the cool adaptations they have, what an interesting life that would be, swimming around doing some fun stuff. So we have a little song that we're going to teach you that by the end of it, you will be an otter. And this is something that you can learn and take back to your kids to do if you want, and we'll have some different extension ideas for you. So I'm going to do this for you first so that you can get familiar with the words and the motion, and it's really easy. And then afterwards, we'll do it together. So don't get, watch out, I'm gonna lift you guys up here. You can stay seated if you want though. Okay. So here is your Otter Adaptations chant. I am a river otter. I like to swim in water. I live in lakes and streams. To help me, I have these. Whiskers feel, teeth to chew, warm, soft fur, and a strong tail too. With special paws, I walk and swim. To be an otter, dive right in. Now, if you wanted to do this, thank you. If you wanted to do this with your kids, if you felt like they needed some room to move their bodies and swim around a little bit, you could let them swim around their rooms, move their body like an otter, use those little short legs and strong paws. You could have some different props of ocean things going by, or not ocean things, of river things going by if you like. Or you could have them do some props like Sagit suggested. You could make yourself into an otter. Here come my fancy otter paws right here. But if you want them to, if you want to make this into an extension where they're thinking more about that otter environment and what an otter would see, you could extend it into a drawing activity where you could have them swim around and be an otter a little bit and then draw some of the things that they would imagine seeing under the water in that water environment, in that river or that lake. Or you could even have them write a story of what they saw as an otter, or what their life is like as an otter. So are you ready to try the chant together? Okay. Get your paws ready. All right. You can unmute yourself if you like, or stay muted, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, here we go. I am a river otter. I like to swim in water. I live in lakes and streams. Help me, I have these. Whiskers feel, teeth to chew, warm, soft fur, and a strong tail too. With special paws, I walk and swim. To be an otter, dive right in. There you go. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being otters with me. We told you that otters like to be together with their family and friends doing fun stuff, and that's exactly what we're doing today. So next, Sagit will be leading us in thinking about otter habitats and what those might look like.
Okay, so what we have here are different pictures of different places where otters were captured, and in the spirit of noticing and wondering, we want you to put on the chat things that you notice and what do you think makes a good otter habitat based on these pictures. Okay, I'll just read stuff while people keep writing. Water, near water, branches, sticks, rocks, branches, grass, and reeds. Plants and reeds in the water. And these slides will be up for you to use. Also, what is this? Suggest. Oh, okay. The River Otter Project, sure. Things to hide out from predators, yeah. Water. Cool environments based on foliage. Places to hide. Variety of vegetation, places to hide. Fish, food source, yeah. Near their food source. Shade, yeah. See shade. Reason vegetation, grass, water, fish, sun, rocks, mud. Okay. So one suggestion we have for an activity, we'll not do it today for sake of time, but one thing that we thought of is recreating like a Zoom diorama of the river otter habitat by going over the different things that otter need, like people said here, trees for shade and water and mud and food. There are different things like fish, but other things that otters eat, and just choose each kid or each group of kids choose something and they draw it, and then we turn our all Zoom gallery into one otter. Yeah, the same right here. So just one big habitat for an otter. But we would love also to hear other suggestions for other ideas, how the kids can enact or do different activities that capture the habitat of an otter. Yes,
Tracy.
Tracy.
So one thing we've done is, I mean, with seals, but like do like a step-by-step drawing of an otter, and then they can create their own habitat. It wouldn't be online per se. I guess they could do it on one of the drawing programs, and then they could, draw all the different places that it might live or for the habitat.
And I think
Yeah.
we weren't suggesting drawing online, pardon me, Sigit, but it would be more doing their drawing in paper and then sharing it by holding it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Willow, do you want to say it, what you wrote on the chat and explain?
Sure, just thinking about, we're thinking so much about how to get kids off of the screen and kind of out into their surroundings. And I could envision saying, all right, today you're going to make an otter habitat. So what are some things that you would want to collect? And then have them go off and collect some sticks or some leaves and find a pot or a pan for some water. And then they'd have to, what would be the things that they could collect from the natural world around them? Maybe they would make a little cave for their otter or whatever. It would just be a good thing for them to go off and do, and then, take a picture to share somewhere or come back to, or, bring their device to wherever they've made the otter. Just, again, things they can do with their hands that don't require them to be on the screen.
And I think the more they do, and when they're using natural materials, that's so important. And then for otters, one of the things to really notice is that they need both types of habitat. They need both land and water. So they need a place where they can access both those things. They can travel quite far over land, but they do need to have that water nearby.
Yeah, and there's always kids who are really into certain animals, so it's always fun to kind of compare, ask them to what the habitat of an animal that they're interested in versus the other. I know, like, I have kids who really like bugs, and even certain bugs like ladybugs or certain other animals, and they know everything about them. So compare these would be cool.
Carrie.
I've also noticed that some kids really enjoy Legos or other materials that they have that they like to play with. And they like to do similar activities to this using the materials that they prefer, like a Lego, or I know we're trying to do off screen, but there's always maybe that kid who enjoys Minecraft and could create a habitat using something like that that they enjoy too. And I'm sure there's others that I'm not thinking of, Play-Doh, but that could be fun.
Yeah, and I'm sure with working with kids online, I mean, this is so new. I've never done it before. You guys have more experience than I do with that, but using the materials that they have available to them. So those things that are in their house and leaving that latitude and that flexibility. And as Sagit suggested, also really learning what a habitat is about, learning in depth about an otter and what type of habitat and natural requirements an otter has to be healthy and successful can then be a launching point to extend that knowledge to create another habitat, like she said, for another animal that interests you, with the important point of that discussion being able to describe why does this animal need this, how is it important to its survival, and being able to really articulate what that habitat is about. Yeah.
I even liked, and I don't know if I was reading the promo for this afternoon, but that whole puppet show idea. So that art integration piece, if they were generating their puppets and then telling the story of the habitat, whether it's whole group or each making their own set, that's really cute.
Yeah, and accessible for little ones too. Are we ready to move on to Willow?
Sure. All right. So, do we want to have people draw the home for the otter? Or do we feel like we've talked about that enough already? What do we think? Did we just do this part? Okay, well, so let's just brainstorm. What are some of the elements of a home for an otter? What are some of the things that we know otters are going to need in their habitat? You can either put it in the chat or you can raise your hand. Up to you.
And so we had a lot of things mentioned during the observations too.
Right. So we know they need water, right? We know they need some kind of food source. Oh, good. Here's somebody putting it in the chat. Thank you for being brave. Water, a food source, vegetation. Great. Anything else that you think otters would really need? Okay, so this would be a place where
shade.
Shade, good, yeah. So this could be a place like we were talking about, we kind of talked about it before, that you could have your students draw a picture or make a model or, you know, whatever, to whatever level you wanted them to create a representation of the habitat. Protection from predators, rocks to rest on. Yeah, those are great ideas. Okay, so, oh, somebody added, oh no, somebody didn't have that. All right, so here's my question for you. And I would like you to give me either a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or I'm not quite sure, okay? So, do you think an otter would want to live here? Thumbs down. We're not talking about a Disney otter. We're talking about a real life otter. Okay, great. All right. Don't think the otter is going to want to live here. Okay, how about here? I see some yeses, some sideways, some no's. Okay, okay.
So can we have somebody share what they think would be
So the
No.
first one, we know, they're not going to live there. Okay, somebody want to share why they responded in the way that they did? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Alien?
You can call me Al. It's Elian.
Al, sorry, Alien.
Because it looked like a dried out creek bed of some sort.
Right.
So if there was water, it would seem to be a more
Right,
level place.
right. It has all the elements that we're looking for, except that one key one that we know otters want. And maybe there's some water right beyond those trees. We'd have to do a little more information. That's great. Okay. Would anyone else like to share why they responded in the way that they did?
I would like to defend the castle as a suitable location to find an otter, because I know that even in your picture, there was the bridge, I think, and that is indicating that there was that's a bridge that you're walking up to that castle, which means there's water right below.
Okay.
That's an excellent observation.
Very good observation.
Gold star.
It is a bridge, and so this could be the palace for an otter. Okay, well done, Carrie. Excellent explanation. All right. How about this place? Would an otter want to live here? Yep, enthusiastic thumbs up. It has all of the elements of a good otter habitat. Great. All right, let's go on to the next. Would an otter want to live here? Ruben's saying, no way. I see a thumb sticking out, or tongue sticking out, my goodness. All right. Would somebody like to explain why they gave their answer to this habitat location? Maybe somebody who had a sideways.
All right, well, I was sideways.
Okay, talk to us.
Well, I guess I need more information, because if there could be a viable creek nearby there. I mean, I can see that there's
Yeah.
trees and there's some grass, so it's a condo, and it could, otters, like that video we saw was from Walnut Creek. Those condos could be in Walnut Creek.
Mhm.
So I just don't know. I need more information.
Okay, so this is another one that we need more information.
Yeah, you're right. Like, based on what I see, it makes me say no. But you're right, right? Like, you have no idea what's like behind those,
Right.
or those apartment complex, or
Yeah, condos. Yeah. I mean, we could be standing on the edge of a big river. This
Yeah.
could be riverfront condos, and there could be otters. Who knows? But
Is there one of the houses looks like it's in the air? I'm sorry, it's just so yes, now.
oh yeah, that's kind of wild.
Oh my
I
gosh,
don't-
if you showed a picture like that to kids, you know that they would notice that too.
Oh yeah.
They have eagle eyes. They see all the things that you don't even know are there.
They do. All right. Anybody else want to add anything about this potential habitat? Okay, let's look at this one. How about this? Do we think otters would want to live here? Yes, maybe, or no? I see most thumbs up. I see a couple maybes. All right. Would anybody like to share why they responded the way that they did?
I feel like there could be a little bit more protection, like a little more greenery going on.
Yeah, maybe there's not as much protection here.
A lot of people live close by in those homes.
Uh-huh. Good. Would anyone else like to share? No? Okay. How about here? Would an otter want to live in this environment? Okay. Would anybody like to share why they responded in the way that they did to this picture?
They will have a heat stroke.
They would have a heat stroke. Yes. They would. They'd be otter crisp, potentially. All right. Anyone else?
It looks like it's out of water.
It looks like it's out of water. Yeah, again,
Water.
we're
I know.
missing that key component that we know otters really
It's
love.
trying to be funny.
I like the auto.
You mean it otter have water?
Oh. All right. Anyone else? Cool. All right, so now that you have moved like an otter and examined some otter habitats and talked about what are the elements that an otter needs to be in, if you were an otter, which one of these habitats would you want to live in? And here's the really important teacher question. Why? Because we want our students to justify their answers, to give us reasons, what they think behind just giving us which one. I'd choose the one with the cactus. Why? That might be a very interesting answer. All right. Would people give me a thumbs up if you would prefer to answer this in person versus in the chat? In person, thumbs up. In the chat, thumbs up. Okay, I'm seeing about half and half. So if you would like to respond to this in the chat, please do so. And if you would like to respond to this in person, please raise your hand and let's go right ahead. Go ahead, Miss Gina. Where would you want to live?
I would, they're not, the slides aren't numbered or anything, are they? The pictures?
No, that would be a very good thing to add into the next round.
I like the one that's underneath the word where.
Okay.
Just because it looks shady and there's water and there's nice green things that an otter could hide in, and
yeah, it
looks really safe.
Great. Okay, so it has those elements that we're talking about. Okay. Would anyone else like to share? Ruben, go ahead.
Yeah, to kind of echo Miss Gina, I would like to stay, if I was an otter, above at the same little area, just because like I can just see, I see that there's water there, and it looks like there's really great places to like hide and just like kind of like make like my habitat, like, you know, and it looks like it's like a lot of fish there, or fish, just things that I can eat, you know. Yeah, but if I wasn't an otter, which I'm not, and if I was a human, which I am, I would want to live in the palace that you showed earlier.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. Fair enough, Ruben. Fair enough. Although Carrie did determine that that could be a suitable otter habitat based upon the proximity of the bridge, which implied water. So we didn't include it in this slideshow. All right, I see. I'd rather live in the one with the trees and the water and protection from the predators. Good. The one in the upper right corner, it has water for a food source, and a place to build a den, maybe somewhere underneath those roots. Choose the picture number 3 because there's shade, water, vegetation, and seems to have a likely food source that otters would need. That's great. The wooded river seems like the most suitable environment given the information available, shade, mud, water. And then we could go back to Disneyland. Sagit.
I choose the one in the middle.
Okay, tell me about that.
Because I feel like that the other one that most people chose, I was afraid that the water is too shallow. And like otters like to swim, and also maybe too shady, like they wanted some warmth. And the other thing that I was a bit afraid, like I was a bit afraid that there are some predators hiding in the trees and stuff that they cannot see, like what eats otter. Like I'm curious to know what otters should be afraid of.
Yeah.
But maybe.
Great. Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, friends. That was really fun. Do we have anything else we'd like to share about otters? I think this is the last slide, if I recall correctly. Oh, here we go.
So before we get to these watershed questions, I just want to pose to the group that these were pretty simple activities we did, these very simple discussions. How do the things we did, how do those support inquiry for your students?
Well, I like that it gets them thinking about environments in general and why does anything live anywhere. So I think just as like a routine, sort of getting back to when Saget said other kids have their own passions about animals they're interested in. So getting them thinking in this way deeply about the otter, then you could say, okay, well, Meta, I remember you love lions. Let's now think about lions and why do they live where they live? Let's think of if we can do that with the animals of our choice. So I like the routines and then getting them just thinking deeply.
So what I'm hearing is that asking those open questions and having that habit of discussion creates habits of mind that build their critical thinking skills that they can then apply further. So it's a science and engineering practice. So this is NGSS, what you've been doing with them, or what you would be doing with them by having discussions like this. It's engaging that critical thinking and the science talk and the reasoning, explaining your reasoning. Yeah. What else? What else stands out to you about this as an inquiry practice?
I think being able to give them photos that they can pick from, because you could use those same exact photos and find animals that fit in the other habitats. So it could be something that's, like was just said, that could span over a couple of days, where one day we're talking about otters, the next day we're talking about lizards. Where would a lizard want to live? And so on and so forth, so that it's a common practice for them, and that they can be like, okay, so I know otters live in these kinds of habitats, but lizards live in these kinds of habitats. And then they can kind of build their own like knowledge of what a habitat really is. And you could change out a photo every day and kind of build a bigger portfolio of folders so that they have more of a chance to be like, well, maybe an otter could live there and a lizard could live there. So I think it could be really cool.
I think in your comments, Flora, you brought out two important points. One is being the length of time. So it takes time to develop those practice and to develop those conceptual foundations that they would use. And the second thing is empowering them as being in the driver's seat of their learning. So giving them that opportunity to share what they see, instead of just being given all the facts about otters, all the facts about their habitats, they're figuring it out themselves, they're building that knowledge, and then they're getting to apply their knowledge in something that excites them, that takes it even further. So time and empowerment. Anything else? All right, so we just want to wrap up a little bit about watersheds. So then how, knowing about the otters, their requirements, how does learning about a river otter habitat help you in getting to know your own watershed? What are some of the connections between understanding the river otter habitat and learning about your watershed?
Now I'm going to be more concerned about pollution and why stuff's getting into the water so that Olympia can swim freely.
Great, yeah, and it brings an awareness of, hey, who's living here with me? Who is actually living here and how are they being affected by what's nearby? Nice. What are some other connections between learning about an otter habitat and learning about a watershed?
It makes. Oh, I'm sorry. Go for it.
Ruben, I think Ruben should go.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes me think of like what I need to like have in my habitat, you know, and then like, you know, what are some of the similarities that, you know, river otters do? Like I need food to survive. They need food too. I need water. They need water. It's just like making those connections. And since we are kind of like similar, me and the river otter, should I be worried about like how can I protect their watershed? How can I protect my own? You know, just making those connections. I think it's really important.
It's a great point about the similarities. We're both mammals. We have very similar lives, actually. Yeah, so what makes a healthy watershed for us? I see Carrie's got a nice comment here. What makes a healthy watershed for us, for the otter? then you can, follow that to what makes the watershed healthy for us. What does a healthy watershed look like? What are our habitat needs? And how do we make those fit with the other animals that are living all around us? And it's easy, living in the built world, it's easy to forget that we actually share the world with animal neighbors. I mean, a lot of times you kind of compartmentalize and think about the animals living out in the forest somewhere when really they're right all around us here too. So then you can think about, oh, well, what would make this habitat even better for us and the otters and the other animals that live here too. There are, and Carrie's got some examples here of the Russian River getting too hot and bacteria that's hurting dogs playing in the water. Yeah, so when it starts affecting us directly and more visibly, then we really notice, oh wait, what's going on with the health of our watershed? But really, everything we do affects the health of our watershed all the time. So the last watershed concept I really want to leave you with is everything in a watershed is a part of that watershed, and everything in that watershed is affected by the health of it and affects the health of it. So your toothbrush, your backpack, your pet, your grandma, if your grandma lives in the same watershed, everything in that watershed is part of that watershed. If your grandma doesn't live in this watershed, wherever she lives, she's in another watershed. So everybody is living in a watershed somewhere on Earth. That's that area where all the water collects and flows to a common body. Do you have any questions about watersheds, otters, inquiry, or the things we've covered today in our last minute? That's something
I wonder how to make the slides appear on Zoom. Our school districts haven't given us a tech lesson about Zoom. So that's something I don't know how to do, but I'm open to learning how to have a slideshow. Is it using,
it's share screen. It's share screen.
So I would put the slides in, because I'm going to learn about Google Classroom more in depth. My district's offering that. So you take your share screen and then you get the slides from Google Classroom slides.
You have, so when you click on share screen, you will see all the screens that you have open on your computer, and then you can tell it which one. So like you have to open the slide already on your computer, and maybe you have other stuff, a Word document, but then you will choose which one of them you want to share.
And that's in Zoom or in Google?
In Zoom. When you enter Zoom, you can see now underneath it says share screen.
Yeah.
When you click it, then you will see all the things you already have on your personal computer, on your screen. So if you open the presentation there, you can just click, you'll see it tiny, you'll click and then everyone will see it.
It's not going to work for you.
I gotta play around with it.
Yeah. It's not going to work for you right now.
I won't play around with it.
Well, you wouldn't have permission right now as a participant, but when you are like the presenter, when you're in charge,
you can share your screen. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you'll be able to have that capacity.
Which brings us to the last part of we have two last parts of our presentation for today, which is to take we're going to do another sharing of our COVID stories. So I need to get out of this. I have to get out of full share so that I can show you. I don't want to stop share. I guess I will stop share. Okay, so and I'll share this in the chat in just a minute. So just like we did the other day, we're going to make another word cloud, and in a minute I'll put that back up again so you can see it. So I'm going to put in the chat a link to Mentimeter and the code that you need to put in order to put your word in, and then that will generate the word cloud, and the folks at MCAE will share that with us tomorrow. And also in the chat, and I'll put up on the screen, is the afternoon reflection. All right, does anybody have any questions before we part for the day? Thank you so much everyone for being here.
Thank you, everybody. It was really a lot of fun. Go home and practice your otter moves. Oh, you are home.
Yeah, do the otter chants. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, go.
Would I see any otters in Mill Valley by Dam Junction, or that's brackish water, that's salt water, so they wouldn't be in that water?
There
They
have-
actually can, they can spend some time in salt water, but on the River Art Ecology Project, they've got the sightings map also. Is that what you're gonna say, Willow?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and I've actually heard that there are sightings of otters in Mill Valley, that people have been seeing them. So that's
Recently? Oh, I'm gonna go look. I
yeah,
want to see
it's
some.
pretty exciting, isn't it?
I saw
Totally.
some otters, I saw river otters up at Abbott's Lagoon not too long
Yeah.
ago too.
Can you guys see my screen still?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna try to copy
And I
this.
think that we have the river otter person coming on Friday, and we can ask
Well,
her
yeah.
all the questions where we can see them.
Yeah,
No.
they'll have good details.
I
Nice.
saw them out at Drake's Beach last year,
Oh, cool.
and they were coming out of the ocean, so we were very confused by what they were, because we thought maybe they were weasels and stuff. But it was cool. I got some
Yeah,
fun
Yeah.
pictures of
they're
them.
tricky how they can do both like that.
Yeah, and they were just playing. You're right; they are very playful animals, and they were fun to watch.
Yeah, we
Right.
saw them in Tennessee Valley.
Yeah.
Here is the link to the main slide deck and Mentimeter. It's on slides 59 and 60.
And what do we need?
59 is
Write
the
the
link
word?
and 60 is how to get it. I'm going to put it up in just a minute. I need to grab this from my email. The access code is 838-268. Okay. So now, can everybody see my screen again? Sharing our COVID stories. All right, so in the chat is the link to this slide, and you can click on menti.com and use that code. The screen will look like this. So you enter that code in the box, even if there's already a number in it, and then you're gonna put in what you, oops, sharing your COVID stories. So how are you feeling now about it all? Any questions about that?
It's saying you have already joined this presentation. Use the field to enter your input.
You've
And I
already
said-
joined this presentation.
I
I'm not
feel
sure
like-
what that means.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it's the same one from the other day. And so
Oh,
since I already
okay.
gave a word, it won't let
Oh,
me do
I
it
see.
again.
Yeah, they did say it's the same one. So it's not letting you in. Okay, that's fine. That's,
Yeah,
that's
it only asked me for a word. It didn't ask me for a code.
Oh, it didn't want the code. It's wanting only the word. Okay.
maybe you're already in there. I don't know. Maybe it's
Yeah.
already linked.
What's my word? What do you want us to write about?
They don't.
It says share one word on how you tried to stay balanced today.
There we go.
Oh, I didn't read the whole sentence.
Thank
you guys
you.
were helping me out. Duh. Okay,
That's what
thank you.
What we got to do. All right. So, and then
Thanks, you
after
guys.
that, it looks like there's the mindfulness moment. I'm not quite sure if I'm supposed to be doing that. What do you think? Are we, Sagit, should we be doing that? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and then there's the afternoon reflection. So I can copy that link and put that in the chat for people too.
All right,
Okay.
you guys, I've got to get going.
All right, thanks
But
so
I
much.
had a lot of fun meeting you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck this
Yeah.
year. Feel free to reach out with questions or whatever you need. I'm here for you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks a
Yeah.
lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to stick around in case anybody has any questions about any of the reflections or Mentimeter or anything. And if you're all done, you can head out and have a wonderful afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow. Eileen, can you hear me? It's in her own world.